Now, Mike, the common, I think, perception among Americans is that people are carrying this stuff over the border in backpacks, walking through the desert, which is really not the case. It's coming through in vehicles and packets coming through, FedEx, DHL, mail. Can you talk a little bit through that, and also the types of technical surveillance that we can use to find those things, and whether we have enough of that or not?
Well, we absolutely don't have enough of the technical surveillance capabilities that we need, but I can't get into too much details on that. I always want more. We always want more of those physical detection devices and capabilities. But when you're looking at the amount of narcotics that they're moving, I mean, we have had multiple stories of these folks just throwing them in the back of trunks of cars because they're moving so much of it that, it's got to get across the border. So if they lose 10, 15 cars, they still have, 50, 100, 1,000 cars that are getting across and bringing the narcotics in. So that shotgun approach of bringing things in, especially the quantity that we're talking about, that almost 14,000 kilos of fentanyl. I mean, you don't bring that over all in backpacks. It just doesn't happen. It has to be moved most often by motor vehicles. And so, and one way or another, it's being moved across in a motor vehicle most often. And then from there, it's being broken down and distributed across the entire United States. The airmail, there's always going to be some, movement via air because, you want things quickly, you want them shipped, and postal and those things, are drugs. I mean, that was how they started off moving drugs via the mail across the United States. So to a lesser extent, most of the stuff, large quantities, is being trafficked via vehicles.
And I guess if you're the driver, you're sort of playing border roulette, that if there's, 200 cars and they're going to catch, 10 of them, I'll take those odds because my family is poor and I'm going to get paid a nice dividend for doing this. So
absolutely,
you have people willing to do it.
Oh, they do, because they're oftentimes desperate poor, and they can make a decent amount of money just by doing that transportation. And we do have a domestic highway enforcement program. We got a great former lieutenant colonel from the Illinois State Police who runs it, and he does a phenomenal job of coordinating with all our domestic highway enforcement folks that do highway interdiction work, and they're a good chunk of how those narcotics are being seized once it crosses the border. If it doesn't get caught by custom, our CBP partners down there, that's kind of the last resort we have, is stopping on the highways of America, trying to make sure it doesn't get to its final destination. And then from there, we've got our task forces across the country, those 23,000 task force officers that are out there on the streets, developing sources, doing the work that I used to do, going out there with informants and making those deals and going out and making those arrests on the street. So coming back to the street level, I mean, that's what that team has been doing since May of last year, bringing all those folks together, getting out there and doing pushes. I can tell you that before that team started, we had people dealing drugs outside of the federal building where I'm standing.
That's annoying.
I have the special agent in charge of DEA walk right through the door over here and say, "Hey, can I look out your window? Where the team's out there right now, and they're going to do a deal of a guy who's sitting right across from the guard shack with all the police vehicles lined up."
Oh, that's
and they had a pound of fentanyl.
Do you have any option to go after the money, and kind of catch the other side and seize that?
The money is critical. They can always make more dope, but they can't print more money.
Yeah.
That's been a harder thing. Our stats and on the HIDTA side are put at, HIDTAprogram.org. And I can tell you that the number of dollars seized has gone down dramatically. And so one of the concerns we've got is, how is the money getting moved?
Mm-hmm.
And so we still don't have a good fix on how that's happening. Some of this is going through money service businesses, especially our Hondurans here. And there was a money service business that was, the owner of the business was indicted for laundering money, just egregious money laundering. But we have a number of individuals that have money services businesses around the country that are laundering cash. And so trying to figure out, is it being moved through crypto? Is it being moved through money services businesses? that is the one thing that we are saying we've got to get a better handle on.
I would have guessed crypto would be a huge player there if you can find somebody who will convert it for you into crypto, because there's no way to trace that, right?
Well, there are always ways to track the blockchain, but it's hard, and that's not the way normal law enforcement operates. I mean, we're used to. I mean, the old days, I was used to, money drops. You've got a guy that's got, $5-10 million, and this was back in the days with Colombian and Mexican DTOs. They've got to move all that cash. And so one of the things we learned especially after we did some very large seizures of cash, is they're not keeping all that cash in one place anymore. So they learn every time that we hit them, they learn how to manipulate and operate to reduce their liability. So we're playing a game of catch up right now, figuring out how is all that money being moved, because there's no doubt in my mind, there's been no shortage of narcotics being sold. Prices haven't fallen off the map. And so they're making more money than they probably ever have. And we have been seizing less.